Hello and welcome to Guy Cocker's Video Games Podcast, episode 13 on 29th of July 2013. I'm your host, Guy Cocker, and on this week's show I'm joined by a couple of my friends and the host of the mobile gaming podcast, Fingerbang, to talk about the week's news, address your feedback, and give away some cool prizes. My first guest is Chris Stevens, who hosts the aforementioned podcast Fingerbang, and is one third of mobile game developer CMA Megacorp, which is currently putting the final touches to its first title. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm very good. Good evening.
Do you prefer to be described as a podcast host or a game developer?
I would prefer to be described as a boy.
Okay, fair enough. Chris and I, the boy, used to work together at CNET. So just for the purposes of full disclosure.
Yeah, I was just thinking the last time we did a podcast together must have been literally 10 years ago, was it?
10 years ago, yes.
Wow.
So you can't be a boy in that case.
No, I'm a gentleman.
Gentleman now. My second guest is also a host on Fingerbang. His name is Bart Harris. Bart, welcome to the show.
Hi Guy, how are you?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm in the best of health, thanks.
Good. So tell us a little bit about Fingerbang, guys, your podcast, and your outlook on games in general, because it's quite interesting.
Well, two very big questions.
Go. Tell us about Fingerbang first.
Okay.
Well, shall I explain what Well, do you want to explain what Fingerbang was, and
I'd like to explain what it was, and you explain what it is.
But I will explain what Fingerbang was,
right,
and then I will explain what Fingerbang now is.
Okay.
Well, I was listening to your excellent podcast, Guy.
You're on the show. You don't need to flatter me. It's fine.
and I was thinking, it made me think more and more how gamers, there's a big sort of gamer culture with video games, and I find it sort of quite inaccessible to just sort of the mainstream. I know there's a massive industry, of course, but until, like, for instance, the Wii came out, when more people got into it, there was people playing sort of physical games then, but like I still don't know a lot of people who actually play video games, and I feel like that's because there are a lot of shooty in the face blamfests and driving games and a lot of zombies now, aren't there?
A lot of zombies. People say zombies have replaced the Nazis, basically.
Is that right?
That's in modern shooting
Amazing.
games.
Is that just in real life as well?
In real life as well, yeah.
Incredible. And, those are all well and good, but I feel like stuff like the incredible game Journey, I only found out through you, and I feel like that needs as much publicity as possible. I feel like people should be sitting down and playing Journey instead of watching a movie.
Right. Because
it's better than most movies they'll watch. And I thought, well, as far as I can see, these amazing, beautiful games don't have enough publicity, and maybe I should do my own podcast to give them that publicity.
So, Chris, your approach, and you said this on the first episode of the show, which has now kind of disappeared into the mist of time, that you don't really play games. Like, you're a game designer, but you don't actually play a lot of games, and you said the golden age of gaming was actually late 90s.
Yeah, well, it felt like that to me. That's when I was most attracted to video games. But on the other hand, it's not. It sounds kind of crazy, doesn't it? A video games designer who doesn't play video games. But I sort of wonder how many of us there are. As in, right. I think most people probably wouldn't confess to it. But I can think of at least two pretty major video games designers I personally know who don't really play video games. I think it's the same way. Did we discuss in a podcast once before? Another podcast. Anyway, the idea that if you're a stand-up comedian, you don't necessarily go and watch a lot of stand-up comedy because, well, one, it's slightly distracting, and the other is that sometimes it just gets in the way of creating stuff. I mean, I know not a lot of novelists don't read other novelists' books whilst they're writing a novel. So it felt to me as if I had my education in video games in the golden age when there was no opportunity for graphics to disguise a lack of good gameplay. So throughout the 80s and 90s, in my opinion, the graphics simply weren't good enough to disguise a lack of gameplay. And now a lot of game titles and a lot of movies in the same way sell themselves off the grandeur and the spectacle without much depth or subtlety.
Emotion, I think, is the key word.
Big lack of emotion in modern video games.
Like emotions that aren't violence related,
right.
I think, importantly.
But yeah, as Bart mentioned, on the other hand, you have the rare and glorious exception of something like Journey or Limbo. But I was pretty disappointed. And I should also mention the podcast that we are involved in, Fingerbang. It's
great.
called,
It's a great name.
Thanks. It's called Fingerbang because it's a reference to the modern popular iPhone game, which involves just mashing your finger on the glass. You know, the control system is very limited. The game is actually very limited. It's kind of a mindless action. And if you took away the screen, or if you observe the player from a distance, you'll just see a man in a sort of coma, smashing his
just
finger,
furiously mashing,
just mashing a box.
Have you played Punch Quest, Chris?
I wouldn't
That's
dare.
like the ultimate finger. But you played Punch Quest.
I played Punch Quest.
Just like bang, 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 just punch everything that gets in your way.
So almost in like a Neanderthalic. Is that
Yeah, it's
barbaric,
very feral. Just, I mean, on the other hand, maybe that's a disservice to feral man. I think feral man probably did a lot of interesting things with his hands and his body. But now the height of modern gaming, in fact, some of the games that have made the most amount of money in the world just involve mashing your finger on the screen whilst you're on public transport. So it's a bit disappointing. But yeah, Fingerbang.
So you're at the point now where you're kind of scared to play, not scared, but like you try and distance yourself from a lot of games because you don't want to be affected. Going back to the comedy example.
There's an element of that, but I think at the heart of it, I just don't find them that appealing. I mean, I have a housemate who plays a hell of a lot of video games, and so I get to see regularly, you know, what's out there. And rarely do I see anything I want to play. I mean, I saw him playing the new Tomb Raider the other day, and it seemed very, very violent. And I don't know if it's something to do with getting older, but the appeal of raw violence to me gets less and less.
Right.
And I remember Tomb Raider. I played Tomb Raider 1, 2 and 3. I remember those on the PlayStation. I loved them, and they were very quiet games, very methodical games where you kind of figured out puzzles and you explored what seemed like these amazing kind of barren landscapes in these cave networks. And then after about half an hour of very careful, cautious gameplay, suddenly a wolf would jump out or something, and it would just scare the hell out of me.
Yeah.
But now there's no dynamic to the gameplay. It's like shoot, shoot, shoot. It's like a symphony, and all there is someone crashing the cymbals and smashing the timpani. It's like you need the dynamic of a game as you need the dynamic in music. If there aren't quiet moments, then the more violent or exciting moments don't have the same impact. And the new Tomb Raider to me seemed like it was just all cymbals and timpani.
It's funny, I agree and disagree with you because the new Tomb Raider is incredibly violent and mindless in a lot of ways. But if you go back to the original Tomb Raiders 1, 2, and 3, it's so infuriating from a design perspective. You're wandering around these caves with no idea what to do. It's so frustrating. It's like that's the whole last. I'm trying to remember when the first Tomb Raider came out. It was like 1996. So effectively, 16, 17 years old now. The whole progression of video games, I would say, in the last 10 years, especially, is them getting easier and making it more obvious what you need to do at any given moment.
Yeah.
So if you go back and play them now, they're incredibly frustrating.
It's a huge mistake making games easier in that way, making them more violent. I mean, the games that I've been playing game recently, I play a lot of iOS games and not much other games, not really console games so much, but I've just been playing a game called Corrupt by Michael Brough. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
No, I'm not.
Jonathan Blow, I was following him on Twitter, and he told me about it, and it just looked disgusting. It's absolutely disgusting, ugly. One of the ugliest games you'll ever look at. But it's like it looks a little bit like Zelda, I suppose, in that it's a man wandering around a screen. But it's a puzzle game that, on the face of it, is very easy, but it is devilishly impossible, and you have no idea what's going on, and then things take an even more confusing turn. But by the end of it, you feel alive, and you feel like you're actually having some kind of drugs trip. By the
in a good way.
In a good way. By the end of it, which and you really feel like you've achieved something.
The antithesis to all this is Dark Souls or Demon Souls. I don't know if you're familiar.
I played Demon Souls. I got really angry with it. I couldn't deal with it.
Right. So what do you guys? So you don't play games, Chris? Really, Bart? What are you playing at the moment? I know you said you were playing Catherine in the podcast recently, and I've seen it on Chris's table over there. So I assume.
Yeah, I brought it over for Chris. I played that because I heard you mention it. Actually, you said I would like it on the podcast, which was interesting, and I bought it kind of off the back of that, really, and I found that different and interesting, but it was kind of like a boring game wrapped up in a badly directed TV soap opera, and then there's a lot of repetitive sound effects, like like a bell that just wouldn't stop ringing, and a woman who wouldn't stop saying "edge" when you moved boxes around, and I got furious. So let's not talk about it.
Okay, fair enough. I think it's
edge. It just does that throughout the whole thing. I saw it being played.
At least there's no shooting in the face, though.
No, there isn't. There's a lot of violence, like a little baby breathing fire at you and smashing you with its little baby fist, with massive baby fist, in fact.
Sorry, Chris, you were saying.
Just the thing that goes edge. It's constant. It's weird because it looks like quite a lot of effort went into the game, and yet at the same time, no one stopped and looked at the main bit of the game and thought, is that edge sound effect happening too much, guys?
Like, there's so many cutscenes, but the actual game itself is it is challenging, but it's just monotonous and just a woman saying edge, and then when you get to the end, like you get to the top of it, you talk to all the different sheep up there on the top of a platform to help you get further in the game, and it's just a bell just like dong dong forever.
Well, I'm sorry about Catherine.
Okay.
I feel bad that I recommended this game to you.
No, don't worry. Thanks for.
I tried. Chris, where can we find out more about your game and when it's coming out and what it's even called at this stage?
Right, so it's kind of top secret. But,
okay.
Hopefully, we'll come back on. I'll come back on with the programmer and the other collaborator, and we can. So that's Marco and Andrew, and we can talk about it on the podcast. It's been very interesting. I mean, we've been working independently. Without any money for just over a year now on this independent title. It's kind of I can't really say anything about it at all, other than we're launching first for iOS and Android.
So it's developing for iOS and Android. Marco's developed the engine for it essentially,
yes.
And you're gonna be releasing before the end of the year, maybe, hopefully. But you were involved in the development of Alice for iPad,
yes.
Which was a sort of early success. Sort of interactive storybook, is that?
Yeah, when the iPad came out, it hit the top of the charts in the first week the iPad came out, which was pretty exciting.
Congratulations!
Thanks.
And Marco's worked on Loco Roco.
He programmed a conversion of Loco Roco for Sony, and he also has his own very successful iOS game called Spirit, where you play a little kind of amorphous spacecraft, and you have to encircle various enemies. It's quite an interesting game. It looks a lot like cross between sort of Tron and Snake, maybe.
Right. Okay. And so to add a bit of context to this recording, we're in the CMA office essentially right now, which is your front room, basically,
which is my living room.
So hopefully you will come back on and tell us a story of kind of the development of it, because it is top secret.
Yeah, it's frustrating. I've got so much to tell you, but I can't say anything just yet.
Fair enough.
We'll come
fair
back.
enough. And then Andrew's involved as well, who is a fellow CNETer, but it's his first game as well, isn't it? Really, I think.
Yeah, it's Andrew's first. Well, I did work on him with a book with us too. Yeah. Which is at another game studio. We worked on a book of nursery rhymes, but apart from that, this is Andrew's kind of first big app.
Good stuff. Okay, and so hopefully we'll be able to sort of tell that story. You guys are independent. You're like in that stage where you're hoping that the game will be a massive success, obviously, and then you can go and retire in like another country or something. But obviously you're in development right now, and we'll see how it goes, I guess.
Yeah. Can I also just say what Fingerbang's become?
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
Because
we've kind of missed that out.
Yeah, we missed
that out.
Can I
also say what games I'm playing that I actually like after that?
Okay.
Well, we'll talk about games that we've been playing later in the show, but Fingerbang,
Yeah, so I'll be brief, but Fingerbang was a podcast about indie games that we really loved and we felt weren't getting enough press, and also it was about video games morality. But now it's become a opportunity for us to play games that don't exist, which might sound a bit abstract, but if you guys who are listening here kind of have a listen to Fingerbang, you'll discover that we're kind of trying to do something satirical with the games industry. We're trying to create video games comedy. Whether or not we've succeeded, I don't know.
It's if it's not comedy, it's definitely satire. And that's
a crucial difference.
Satire doesn't necessarily have to be funny. So,
for example, this week we reviewed a game called Nun Shun, which doesn't exist, where you go into a monastery and you have to shun as many nuns as possible. And we also reviewed games like Escape from Obama, where you have to escape a sort of raging character called Obama who's after you because you're a whistleblower. And we also covered games like Caesarean Families.
That was my favourite, I think.
Yeah. So if you want to hear about any of those games, then take a listen to Fingerbang.
Or if you'd like to send in your own games, for us to play.
Ideas or your actual games?
Just send in the games.
Okay.
Just send in the games. We'll play them. Just tell us what they are and what they're about, and we'll give them a go.
Fair enough. So the next show will be on a similar.
Yeah, we just begun.
We had in the first couple of shows, we actually had ideas about games that we'd like to see based on Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Titanic, a fighting game based on a door at sea where you had to fight for control of the door. And those were the bits that people seemed to enjoy more than anything, or they certainly made them laugh. And so this is almost like a natural progression from that.
It's good. It's good experimentation. But I did listen to the show and didn't realise that these were fake. So
which is perfect
element of it. So it's kind of in the greatest tradition of British satire, I would say.
Well, maybe that's good. I mean, that fills me with hope that you thought that they were real. Simply because it worries me that the game industry might not be coming up with great ideas, but it's quite uplifting to hear that you thought some of these were real.
Well, yeah, I did. I did listen to it before I came over here, so I was on the tube and maybe I was navigating the tube and I was focusing on it, but it crossed over into that thing where some of them sounded possible or plausible. Yeah. So I don't know.
Wait till you hear Granola Wars.
Granola Wars. When's that coming out?
Hopefully this
week.
This week.
Because your podcast is fortnightly, isn't it? I think you said bi-weekly.
We're trying to go weekly.
We're trying to go weekly. We're doing our best. We're both busy men, but we're doing what we can.
So Fingerbang, if you search for it on iTunes, you'll find it, or
or Fingerbang Pod at Fingerbang Pod on Twitter.
On Twitter. All right, thanks guys. Before we get into the show, please, whatever you think about this show, email podcast@guycocker.com and let me know what you think. Last time we had codes for the game Bridgie Jones to give away on iOS, thanks to Chilingo. Bart, you didn't play
Come
this.
on.
No, I didn't.
I played it. Yeah,
I didn't play it. I did a competition off the back of it getting very good reviews on certain games websites, but you
can't always trust reviews.
That's a very good point.
I think Bart's about to demonstrate the brilliant editorial independence of your podcast.
Yeah, he's free to say whatever he likes.
Here he goes.
Oh, come on. I hadn't heard of it, and I thought that's a funny name, Bridgie Jones. It's sort of funny, and so I tried playing it, and it's the best I can say about Bridgie Jones is it's fine.
It wouldn't get a finger bang.
It's not getting a finger bang.
That's an award that these guys.
I'd give it a 5 out of 10. But I played about 3 levels, and I thought this is just a bit confusing. It's not so much confusing. It's just a tiny bit messy. You're building bridges with stuff that you've got to get an old man to the other side of the screen, and it felt just messy. You know, when games just feel like there didn't seem to be enough. Didn't seem the places where you put the things didn't seem definitive enough.
Right.
And so there's just bits of track flying all around. You have to rebuild the track basically. Just bits of track flying all around the screen, and I didn't know what I was supposed to be doing, and I just gave up and I couldn't be bothered anymore.
Well, I'm sorry about that, but
That's fine.
I'm sorry it was mentioned on the show, and that.
I'm sorry to the makers of Bridgie Jones. Is it Chilingo?
It's Chilingo. Yeah, well, that was the question.
They may cut the rope, didn't they?
They may cut the rope.
I love cut the
massive,
rope. If I can just say that.
Anyway, the question was, who was the developer behind the game? The answer was technically Grow App, but I'll also accept Chilingo. And our winners are Steve Albone, Sophie Petzel, Tim Harris, Hannah Warren, Luke Parsons, Nick Harris, and Alan Shannon. Congrats, guys. I'll get your codes over to you as soon as possible. This week, we have 3 copies coming in just under the wire from Codemasters of Grid 2 to give away to celebrate the release of the DLC for the game. Get your answers.
What's the DLC?
Downloadable content. Sorry, I should have defined that. You're not familiar with the term DLC?
No, not really.
Jeez, so DLC...
IAP, I know that.
IAP, in-app purchase, yeah.
I didn't know DLC.
I didn't know DLC. I know IAP.
I need to break... We're going to come on to this feedback afterwards. Downloadable content is a big thing in, I guess, traditional Xbox 360, PlayStation 3 titles. Okay. So, the makers of Grid 2, Codemasters, have just released some new DLC for the game, and I haven't actually written down a question for to be able to win. So what I will say is,
I'll make one up.
I'll make one up. Mine was going to be, where are Codemasters based? What do you want to make up?
What is the name of the whistleblower currently stuck in the Moscow airport?
That's a good question. US whistleblower.
Yeah.
Okay, there might be many whistleblowers.
There might be packed with
whistleblowers.
What is the name of the famous whistleblower currently stuck in a Moscow airport?
So you can answer that, get your answers into podcast@guycocker.com before next week's show on the 5th of August, and I'll draw the winners on next week's show. Okay, guys, let's discuss this week's feedback. There's lots of feedback because it's been a few weeks since I've done any feedback on the show. So let's start with Stuart Scrace. He says, "Hi, Guy. Just wanted to say I'm enjoying your new podcast. I think it surpasses the GameSpot podcast. My question is, have you ever encountered a video games creator who considers colourblindness when making their games?"
Yes.
Yeah, because you're colourblind, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah. Basic example. I'm colourblind, and I often find it causes problems. Basic examples are very boring games like Bejeweled, where you have to match 3 or more of the same colour.
That's a blessing to be unable to play that.
I concur.
A more serious example is Gears of War, an entire series of games that I cannot experience because, to me, the whole thing is just a dull grey void.
I like this guy.
A lot of other people may agree.
Sure,
with
he's
that
not simply reacting to the quality of today's video games.
He's not actually colourblind.
Many of them seem like a dull grey void to me as well, dear
I've
listener.
seen screenplay thingies of Gears of War, and it just looks like a lot of anger.
It is a lot of anger. It's a lot of angry men shooting things.
Right.
Where I cannot see the enemies coming at me. I've heard it discussed very briefly on another podcast, but that never really gave it much weight. I think that since 10% of males are colourblind, it should be something that is given more consideration. Thanks for your work and keep it up. So while I've got a games designer in his what would you say about this issue? Because it does affect males more than females, doesn't it? I believe.
I wrote to a game.
No, go on.
Yeah, I actually wrote to called Drocken. He made Star Sea Pilgrim.
Okay.
Don't know if you're familiar with that. Yeah. And he replied to me. I've tweeted a few games developers, and they all seem very nice.
Most of them tweet back.
Most of them tweet back. Yeah. And he said it was in the works. I haven't heard anything about it, but Starseed Pilgrim is a game that I can't play. I can sort of play it. I can sort of see the colours, but it's just like you have to be really quick, and I haven't got the speed of like focusing on the colours enough. And I can't do it.
Have you? I mean, this is going to sound really, really stupid, but there are various levels of colourblindness.
I assume so. I assume so.
But have you played Bejeweled before? Or
No. The first game I had trouble with was one of the Zelda titles on the Game Boy Color. It was probably Oracle of Ages or Seasons, and there was like a block shooting game and the Game Boy Color, obviously the colours weren't amazing. They weren't that very bright, and so I didn't know whether I was shooting red or blue blocks, and I couldn't play that game, that little mini game in Zelda.
So have you, Chris, apart from Bart's colourblindness problem in Zelda, have you designed your new game at all with any colourblindness? I'm putting you on the spot here.
No, it's fine. It's interesting. I mean, I have to be brutally honest and say I hadn't really considered it, but now I've thought a bit about it while Bart's been speaking. Just more through accident than design. Our game is a lot of colourful characters set against a dark black background. So I think because of the contrast, there's probably not going to be an issue with the colours. And also the game doesn't rely heavily on colour, although thinking about it does actually. The hazardous surfaces are a specific colour. So what I'm going to do is I'll run that by Bart before we release it.
And have a colourblind.
I think
red and grey, they're easy to determine between.
I think I may have, because I've played a little bit of it, I think I may have had a problem with it.
Really?
I'm not sure though. I'll have to double check.
All right.
Bart's seen your game. I haven't.
Oh,
anyway, we'll move on. Thank you very much, Stuart, for your comment. And colourblindness is not really something that's thought of, I don't think, by a lot of game developers. Justin Stanislawski is actually, I hope I pronounced that right, has some feedback and some comments on a podcast about 4 or 5 weeks ago now, where Bart actually wrote to me and very, very eloquently and very seriously and had a really good point to say that a lot of the stuff that I talk about in the podcast may not be known about to gamers in general, so like DLC, those sort of terms. Anyway, Justin says, I enjoy your podcast, thanks for making them. I disagree with Bart's comment from the most recent podcast. To a certain extent, you're an insider chatting with insiders. That's the appeal. In my opinion, the podcast isn't overly insular or esoteric. It's interesting to those who follow the industry more than casually, but it's certainly not just for video games journalists. Anyone who follows gaming at all knows about the Oculus Rift. Bart loses credibility points for not knowing about it. Well, I've got you here, so I wanted to put it to you. How do you feel about losing credibility points?
I don't know what they are, but I find it very amusing. I I like that I've lost credibility points in a way, because it feels like I had some in the first place.
So you need to have them to lose them.
I didn't know I even had any. So thank you. Who is it?
Justin.
Thank you, Justin.
Justin Stanislawski, I think.
But I think I told you this earlier. Although you read most of my email, you didn't, and you represented me very well. You didn't read the end bit, which I said. Which I said.
I'm sorry about that.
No, it's not a problem. There's a car outside there. It said that your game is clearly working for hardcore gamers, right. and so that's absolutely fine. And Fingerbang was originally like a response to that, and I thought, let's try and get more casual gamers or people who don't even play games at all. And I think that he's obviously got a good point. You're talking to insiders mainly, and that's great. So he's. I think we're arguing the same point. I feel like we're arguing the same point.
Yeah, I should know better than this because I do some work for mainstream outlets and stuff like Sky and the BBC, and I thought I'd become accustomed to breaking down acronyms like MMO, massively multiplayer online, like that sort of stuff. But obviously, I just said DLC, and you guys were like, "What is a DLC?"
Yeah, I mean, I like listening to your show because I do sort of. I find it esoteric, and I don't know. Like you had on last week, the community manager. I thought, what is a community manager? I have no idea. And I was listening to it, and I was just transfixed, to be honest. Right. I thought this is an incredible world of something I've no idea about.
You literally didn't know that job kind of existed.
I didn't know what it was. I didn't know what yeah, but it was.
What's the job?
Community manager.
Explain.
Like a community manager, basically, they manage the communities. That's a rubbish explanation. They manage the social interactions essentially with game developers. So they're kind of the buffer, the interim between the community, so people who play the game and are quite actively engaged in a game like Call of Duty, and the developers. And so they answer questions that they may have, or they address problems that they might have.
It's like very hands-on PR.
Yeah, essentially, yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I should get one of those.
Yeah, it has to be one of you, I think, for a micro studio.
Yeah, that'll have to be me. That'll
have to be you. I'm sorry, you're just giving you another job.
Yeah, but with regard to the end of that email, I think Justin's he's attempting to strike a bit of a low blow with the credibility points thing, and I think that's a bit of a shame.
It's like how he's made it video game themed. He's reduced you to nothing but a character in a game in your own life,
right?
Where you lose or win credibility points. We should review this game.
Life.
We'll review this game in the next Fingerbang.
I'm sorry that this has descended into such comments and back and forths. Feel free to address that via email on the next show, and
I'd love to. Maybe I will. I'll listen to this back and see what kind of emotions
comes out of it.
Evokes in me.
Eric Song says last week's podcast before the community manager one seemed like a console special with the clash of Xbox One and PlayStation 4 as well as Project Shield, and I agreed with a lot of the panels, especially with the purpose of Project Shield. As a gamer, I'd love to play Skyrim even in my toilet, but I think I'd rather play with my iPad. Besides, the price would make me rather buy a PS Vita. Anyway, I just wanted to ask everyone what drives...
Is that a really abstract poem?
It's some of it sounded a little bit like that, and I might have on the fly there just reorganised some of the words.
All of the words. So the pentameter was correct.
Just finish the poem.
Okay, I'll finish the poem. Anyway, I wanted to ask anyone, it doesn't sound like a poem, about what drives gamers to buy console/PCs. Is it the video game titles, such as exclusives, or the console and the service it provides? For example, I've heard from last week's guest that PlayStation Plus offers relatively new games for a very cheap price, while Xbox offers more things than just games. Of course, it may sound like obvious that for gamers, game is the main drive to buy games consoles. However, when I saw many Xbox fans commenting that they will shift to a PlayStation 4 after Microsoft's initial DRM policies and Sony's E3 press conference, maybe Halo and Titanfall was not enough to contain them. What do you think is the main drive when you buy consoles? Is it the features or price or games or something else? I'd love to hear from your guests. Now, you guys might be the wrong guest to ask about this.
I'm definitely the right guest to ask about this.
When you buy a console, what consoles do you have? And are you looking to buy new consoles? And if you're looking to buy them, what's the main consideration?
I bought a PS3 from my neighbour, and I have bought a few games on it, and I have enjoyed most of my play Skyrim.
Yep.
Which,
You've discussed it on Fingerbang.
which is deeply flawed in some ways, but also very compelling.
Yeah. Do you appreciate the ambition in that game, Bart? The sort of the amount of time.
I completely appreciate the ambition. The problem is when you actually get to any key battles, sometimes the battles don't work.
Right.
A big dragon battle, a boss, a big boss in a dungeon. He didn't attack me, and I looked up and it was a glitch in the game, and I think that's incredibly crazy.
It is crazy. And also, you were saying you were attacking a woman. She fell through the floor.
Oh yes, yeah, that happened. Griselda the Kind. She was an orphanage, and a very very mean. And I punched her in the back of the head, and she died.
She fell through the scenery.
She did fall through the scenery. It was. I didn't really mind about that. I was kind of like out of sight, out of mind about that.
Yeah.
But in terms of buying console, I kind of want to buy a PS4, but I don't know. I'm kind of caught up in the hype. What I think is the most important thing is that I think games should be more accessible, and like if they were as easy to get as a movie on Netflix or something like that, I think that would be a lot better for the world. And
So
I
what
think
the
it would
subscription
be
purpose?
yeah, if the games console didn't have to exist, I think that would be. I know it sounds stupid, but if you could just play Journey. If everyone could just enjoy that. I've heard stories about Journey, about people like one boy finished playing it and then reconnected with his father.
Wow, okay.
It was incredible. And if everyone could experience that, it'd be amazing. I wish people didn't have to buy consoles. I
Right,
wish there was
'cause
just
it's
some way of making them free.
It's still very like the number of people that have played Journey as a proportion of the potential audience is
Madness.
Yeah, it's tiny, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Installing
you
the
could
PS3.
probably do a huge service to the universe simply by repeating the words "play Journey"
Right.
for half an hour on your podcast every week.
Yes.
Every week.
Yeah,
I
sincerely. I mean,
concur.
do you think most of your listeners have played it? Then?
I think a lot of them will, but there's still a good proportion of people out there that are Xbox 360 owners rather than PlayStation 3
Some people
owners.
don't like it either.
No, but it is
which
outstanding. It's the only video game I've ever played, and at the end of it, I thought, wow, I never knew that a video game could match and exceed the emotional impact of any movie I've ever seen.
Right.
And
In
it
fact,
didn't do that
not
by
more
every
than- more so
Yeah.
than-
Would you
many.
say, because obviously it's a PlayStation 3 investment cost is about £150 right now.
Okay.
You wouldn't say it's worth £150, but
That's the problem.
If you're, but if you're a hardcore gamer, almost. I mean, I don't know. You could spend. I reckon, although like this isn't a great justification, you could spend 150 quid on movie tickets so far this year and have not seen anything of the quality of Journey.
quite easily in fact. Yeah.
But Journey itself,
you feel like
obviously,
you've wasted your money and time.
But if you already have the console, obviously Journey's very cheap, isn't it? It's like 15 quid or
less than
something.
£15.
And it's the length of a movie as well,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah.
it's exactly 2 hours long if you do a
take
normal
2
playthrough.
That's where I think the industry should try and go, because it was really high quality and it didn't take up too much time. I mean, that's the main reservation actually maybe I have about playing video games these days. I have so many things I want to do creatively, and the idea of sitting for 18, 20, I don't know how long these modern games take to complete, for that number of hours just entertaining myself, by shooting people in the face. I just,
And that's not because you get bored of them during that period, it's because you've got other stuff to do, basically.
Yeah, it's mainly that. So, I mean, something like Journey's perfect. I know this experience is only going to take like an hour and a half, 2 hours, and I'll come out of it sort of emotionally enriched.
Right.
Can I just ask the guy who wrote this letter? So, what was his question? Whether or not
When you buy a new
consoles?
console, yeah, what's the reason for doing it? So there's obviously there are new consoles coming out in November. What would be your main? I assume you will.
It would be the games. I mean, the reason I bought the PlayStation 1 was simply because I saw a Japanese friend of mine playing Rage Racer.
Yeah.
And I actually bought an imported. I actually bought a console and got it shipped. Got an imported version of Rage Racer because it plays at 60 frames per second rather than. There used to be this thing where you could
50,
you could get 10 extra frames per second.
Yeah.
If you bought the imported console. I did everything because Rage Racer was amazing.
Yeah.
And the same's true today. I mean, the reason, although like I said, I'm not massively into video games, the reason I would get a particular console now would be because of the games. Like I was tempted to get an Xbox simply because of Fez.
Right.
And I'm very glad we had a PlayStation because of Journey.
Yeah.
So I think it's the games.
Fez is on PC now. We're going to talk about Fez later in the show.
I've got a
Actually.
PC either. I cannot play Fez.
Right.
I'm really frustrated.
Well, we'll talk about Fez later, but yeah, obviously PlayStation 4 coming along the line and Xbox One. Have you seen anything that would make you interested in those consoles?
Well, Grand Theft Auto,
GTA 5 is kind of
whatever it was,
sort
5.
of, but it looks like a lot of hard work now.
looks too realistic.
No, it looks literally like a lot of hard work.
Right.
It says you can plan your own heist down to the last thing. I don't want to. I want to go and drive over some people and listen to some stupid radio stations playing Mr. Broken Wings.
Right.
And go and kill some drug lords and work my way up the
You
chain.
used to be massively into GTA, didn't you? And not so much anymore.
I love.
I used to love it. I loved it because there was no. Well, if you wanted there not to be any objective, then there wasn't one necessarily. You could just explore the world. But yeah, I mean, there's kind of a weird. I noticed something interesting happening in video games recently, and that is that art styles have become to get interesting again. Because I feel like as we've reached a point where photorealism is quite achievable in the world of video games, it seems like there's not so much drive to get there. They realise being photorealistic doesn't necessarily equal a good game. And I've seen some games recently, like I don't remember the name of the game. It's set on an island. It looked a bit like Myst, but again, there are graphical styles creeping in that are more impressionistic. They're impressionistic.
That sounds like Dear Esther.
What's that? Dear Esther was. I've told you to play Dear Esther. You should still play that. That's kind of Journey-esque in a way. But there's a new game, that new Alan Page, Willem Dafoe one.
Oh, Beyond Two Souls. Yeah.
Because Heavy Rain was amazing. I'm one of the people who failed.
You killed everyone.
I killed everyone.
Actually, that's kind of a spoiler, but yeah, I think people know at this stage. Yeah, he killed everyone.
I just didn't know what I was doing.
A good proportion of people killed everyone, apparently.
It's mental. Like, it's like, no. Oh, no. Then the next one.
He's dead and she's dead.
But they've made this new, and I like that. This new one, I showed you the trailer for it, Chris, and it looks like kind of a bad action film with telekinesis.
Oh yeah,
it's been up and down that game.
It looks interesting, but I feel like, is it gonna be good or not? I don't know.
I hope it is. I've got enough faith that I really liked Heavy Rain. Have you played The Last of Us? Either of you guys or not?
No, it seems like an infected.
It is violent.
Infected kill spree.
Yeah.
It is an infected kill spree. But
so I won't play it.
IKS.
You won't play it because it's too violent.
I won't play it because I have to buy it for a start.
Right.
I'm not interested in investing money in.
Well, if I were to lend you my copy, then
I will give it a go.
Okay, cool. Well, let's move on with the next comment, which is from Perry Urban, who says, "Enjoying the podcast. Nice to see you moving on to better things. The only thing that needs fixing urgently is the sound, where a lot of the speech is lost in room ambience. So we're recording this. We're doing an experiment. Can I say the secrets of our recording setup?
Oh yeah, I wonder if it turns out badly. This will be
should have a photo.
Embarrassing.
Yeah, we're basically all holding our iPhones up and using the iPhone onboard microphone. So yeah, we should get a photo of this. Usually it's one very good microphone in the centre of the room, but I've known for a long time that that's probably not the best way of doing it. Bart's playing around with an iPad right now. So yes, I'm looking into it. Apologies for the technical difficulties and if the sound hasn't been good, but we'll see how this works out. I'm interested because the Fingerbang guys are using iPhones for theirs, and I thought the quality was really good. And I was going to ask you guys, how did you get it so good? So.
Yeah, maybe someone can write in if they know if there's an app that does this. But we just use the voice recording app in the iPhone, and we both hold our iPhones up near our mouths, and then I sync up the two recordings in GarageBand later. So it'd be nice if there's an app out there, I don't know, that will automatically sync 3 or more iPhones. Could be great for podcasts, right?
Yeah.
So can you press that camera button?
We're taking a photo, listeners.
Covered it with the... That's better. We just did it. So I've got a long comment from Graham McKay. I will from Bavaria. I will cover that next week. The final email's also from on technical issues. So Simon Bree saying, "Good to hear people from each week and hear different areas of the industry. You do need to crank up the volume a little bit, please. Also, can you make the details of the competitions a little clearer? Sometimes you say you have a code for a game, but don't say what platform it's for. I know some are probably exclusive, but us lay people don't always realise and make more of it. You're giving something away. That's great, but you seem to rush through it. Anyway, I like the show. Please keep it up and save me from listening to those whiny Yanks. Might go and unsubscribe from them now, actually."
Is that racism there?
Casual?
Bit of casual racism.
Xenophobia at the very least.
It's fine. That's from Simon. Thanks very much for your comments and feedback this week. Remember, if you want to get in touch with me on the show, it's podcast@guycocker.com. Okay, time for the news section. I've picked out this week's big and interesting news stories, and we'll ask my guests what they think. First up, Twitter blow-up leads to sudden cancellation of Fez 2. Polytron, the studio behind the indie hit Fez, announced over its official Twitter feed that development on Fez 2 has been cancelled. It appears to be related to a very heated Twitter argument between Polytron founder Phil Fish and an internet personality who sharply criticised him today. Marcus Beer, who editorialises under the Annoyed Gamer brand on game trailers, tore into Fish on that site's most recent Invisible Walls panel discussion. Beer's complaints with Fish centred, in his view, around Fish's unwillingness to comment on Microsoft's newest policies regarding independent development on Xbox One. Now, guys, are you familiar with Fez? Are you familiar with Phil Fish? And have you seen any of this?
I have seen this.
What do you think? Is he right to cancel this game just because he's had some criticism?
I refuse to say anything about Phil Fish because he terrifies me.
Right. You've seen it again in the movie as well.
I just saw the Twitter stuff, and look, I mean that sounds stupid. Like it's like I don't know the ins and outs of it. All I saw was a man getting very angry at people, apparently. Insulting him, and that's all I've seen. But he seems obviously furious enough to cancel the game, and I don't know what he's like as a person. This is his big thing. Like he seems to think people are criticising him without knowing him, and the internet seems to be just a lot of it seems to lots of the internet seems to hate him, and I feel a bit sorry for him, but I don't know the ins and outs of it, so maybe it's his fault, maybe it's not. I don't know. Who knows?
It seems like, actually, just disconnected from this, walking through London today, it seems like the mainstream media has caught on to the terms trolling and just Twitter hate in general. There's been a lot of people that have been, like the most horrible stuff, like people coming out as feminists and saying that they like people on Twitter want to
just
rape them.
Past few days.
It seems as though like the Evening Standard basically is catching on to what happens online on Twitter. Where Jonathan Blow. So this exchange, I'm interested to get your thoughts on this, Chris. So Beer, the guy from Game Trailers, Annoyed Gamer, called Fish and indie developer Jonathan Blow self-styled kings of the indie genre, and called the pair, whom he kind of categorised or brought together as Blowfish, which is quite clever, were bitching and moaning about a reasonable media request for their reaction to a significant industry development. Like Bart says, it went back and forth with lots of swearing, lots of like accusations of people being whiny and effing a-holes and all the rest of it. What do you think? I mean, you're an indie developer. Are you a self-styled indie? What was the term? So are you a self-styled
indie dickhead?
Indie,
yeah.
Yes. Would you consider yourself as
I think you should try it.
Indie movement, or?
Well, I am an indie developer, so I guess I would be able to speak from that position. But look, I mean, the thing I have to say about this is, why are these people on Twitter? Why are you on Twitter? I remember Jonathan Franzen said he doesn't believe that anyone with an internet connection is writing good fiction. And I think it's probably true that anyone with a Twitter account is not making a good video game. And the other thing is, it's really disturbing. I mean, maybe I have more experience in this, having been a journalist, but I remember I wrote stuff on CNET that would get packed with comments. I mean, I'd write articles that get millions of hits, and it'd be packed with comments underneath, some of them telling me to kill myself, some of them telling me what a dick I was, some of them telling me just various. I mean, the 90% of comments were like vindictive madness from some sort of insane bastard sat on his sofa at home just getting furious about what he was reading on the internet. I just think you kind of need not... well, look, psychologically something weird happens when there's a disconnection between the person you're speaking to and what you're saying. You feel very bold, and I reckon if these two men had a conversation in reality, it would be resolved within seconds. But there's this danger of anonymity, and that's the problem with Twitter. I mean, the fact that you're communicating with people, but you're not present, and it's a presence that invites, manners and just common decency and a connection to another human. You forget you're not talking to another human. I mean, because people often accuse other people of the things they fear most in themselves, but they're often, that's counterpoised by the fact they can see the reaction in the other person in reality. But if you're on Twitter and you're in some way personally resentful, obviously these two people have different psychological problems. I mean, everyone has a psychological problem. These two people have a psychological problem. The guy who's telling, is it Phil Fish,
Yeah.
telling Phil Fish that he needs to comment on something that he doesn't want to. He has a psychological problem in that he feels the need to control and persistently manipulate other people to do what he says, and then Phil Fish has a problem where he feels insecurity and he takes criticism very badly. And so there's these two people who are showing their worst neurosis out on Twitter. It must happen all the time. It's like a breeding ground for your neurosis to erupt in a painful and embarrassing manner.
But is it enough for him to cancel his
Very
entire...
good.
It's a very good response. Is it enough for him to cancel his project and just move on and just...
Well, no, it's a ridiculous reason because he should never have been on Twitter. He should close down his Twitter account and never go back on. And I
agree with that.
He should just take a nice walk because these people on Twitter are not producing any creative work. They're criticising him. It's not fueling his creative energy. On the other hand, I suppose it's a kind of powerful and exciting riposte to cancel your game. Yeah. And I mean, why not? Maybe he wanted a reason to cancel it anyway. I mean, he could do a different title. Sure. Who knows? But I think it's really unsettling that he felt like he needed to take these responses seriously because one, these people are expressing their own problems, not his. And second, it's just a whole lot of noise that he doesn't need.
But there was Phil Fish is, he's certainly divided a lot of people after seeing, who have seen Indie Game the movie. But there is an element to him where I think he, like Chris says, he may have been looking to cancel the game, may just be looking for a bit of publicity. I don't know. There's an element from my perspective of him wanting to get some publicity for this. And then coming back and saying, "Oh, it's not cancelled." After all,
from what I've only just started following using the Fingerbang account, in fact, and I've seen the game, the movie. That's all I know. I haven't played Fez, obviously, like I said before, because I haven't got a PC or an Xbox.
Sure.
So I don't know too much the ins and outs of it. I hear that he leaves Twitter a lot and then comes back. Whether he's doing that with this game, I suspect he will still make this game once he cools down a bit.
Sure.
But like Chris says, he probably shouldn't be on Twitter. Incidentally, I've heard about the...
nor should anyone.
Well, Andrew Lim said it best. Twitter is shouting in the street.
What does that make Facebook?
Facebook has become a monster. That's a different...
Facebook is shouting at a dinner party.
Right, because you're invited, basically, aren't you? Okay.
Yeah.
Where's Pinterest?
That is shouting...
At the tea coffee morning.
In a minicab office. At tea and coffee morning.
It's a tea and coffee morning. Tea and coffee morning.
It's better. Sorry, before we derail this, Bart, you were saying something else about Phil Fish.
All I wanted to say was the only other thing I heard that's important to add is that the thing that...
He's a fish, he's a fish, he's a fish. Sorry. Oh, God.
You've revealed his true identity.
Jonathan Blow and Phil Fish were... Blowfish were asked to comment on, apparently was rumours about the new consoles. That's what they were saying, look, we're not just going to comment on speculation, that's mental. And
that's what we do in a lot of this podcast. So.
Is it? Oh,
yes.
Okay. Have I done it today?
I think so.
Well, it's a technique journalists use. If they get someone with credibility to comment on something speculative, they give it a credence it doesn't actually have.
Right.
Like I remember at CNET, I wanted to write a story about Apple buying Nintendo, but they weren't buying Nintendo, and then so I asked you for a quote because I thought you would give some legitimacy to this vacuous piece of drivel.
And I said it would never happen.
And you said it would never happen. I put your quote in the article, and it got on Slashdot, and it got millions of hits.
Yeah. You were dining out on that for months.
So that's obviously what they're saying no to, and you can't blame them for that.
No, they made a very wise decision there.
Well, it wouldn't be like you guys were able to play Fez 2 anyway. It was only coming on PC, not Xbox, so or even PlayStation 3. So
yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of things, but I haven't got anything I can play Fez on, which I think is actually a failing of Phil Fish.
Well, he doesn't care now. He's out of the game, literally.
Doesn't care.
All right, next news story. Sony confirms PlayStation Gran Turismo film in production. Also says BBC News. Sony has confirmed that a film based on the Gran Turismo PlayStation game is in development. The company said it could not provide any further details about the movie or when it would be made. But the Social Network and 50 Shades of Grey producers Michael DeLuca and Dana Brunetti have been linked to the project. Gran Turismo is one of Sony's most popular franchises, selling 70 million copies worldwide, and the newest game in the series, Gran Turismo 6, is expected to be released later this year.
That's fantastic, because if Gran Turismo is known for anything, it's its brilliant characterisation of tyres and engines
of real life
and tracks.
realistic racing in any car.
Of all the video games I've ever played, the one that has the least storyline and characterization, I think, is Gran Turismo.
I think
there are no characters in it. There is no storyline.
I think it's got no
simulator, maybe.
I think it's got no soul either.
No soul.
As far as I've noticed.
They'd be better off making a film adaptation of Tetris or something.
That'd be a great.
I would watch that. I would not watch a Gran Turismo film.
They made a film out of Battleship, to be fair, which was a board game with no personality or story.
Was it good?
I don't know. It was terrible, I heard.
At least in Battleships, there's like this idea of good and evil, two warring factions. I mean,
there's your story.
Is there any more information on what the storyline might be?
No. It just says that Sony executives Elizabeth Cantillon, Devon Franklin, and Hannah Minghella will oversee the project. That's basically it, according to Hollywood news sites The Wrap. There are a couple of... there's one major game release in a similar vein that's making the jump to cinema, which is Need for Speed, which is due for release early next year. The DreamWorks production will feature Breaking Bad star Aaron Paul and British actor Dominic Cooper. There's also Splinter Cell, which is going to star the guy from who played Bane in Batman.
Tom Hardy.
and there's going to be another one based on Assassin's Creed, which stars Michael Fassbender. So Ubisoft's got quite a few coming out. But you're excited then, Chris? Is what you're saying?
I'm mystified. I'm very intrigued by how they're going to do it. I mean, they're going to just project. They might as well. They're just going to call the movie Gran Turismo, aren't they?
Gran Turismo,
it's going to have nothing to do with the game because there's nothing in the game.
Is it Fast and Furious? Is that what it is?
It could just be Fast and Furious.
Yeah, I was thinking that. Sounds like a lot of these adaptations you talked about sound like they're just going to be Fast and the Furious, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're a similar vein because Fast and Furious is very.
And that franchise is fine, but I mean, really, is there any more room for that sort of thing? I mean, why don't they take the money they're going to use on adapting these game franchises and give them to talented indie filmmakers like Sofia Coppola or someone, and get them to make something genuinely affecting?
Or just
well, I would agree. I would
just
disagree.
charity.
I disagree that Sofia Coppola is a. I saw the last few of her films and not.
We'll give it to Richard Link later.
But they're not going to make they're not going to make any money, are they? That's the thing. That's how Hollywood thinks.
Well, probably because they wouldn't promote them. I mean, cinema's turned to spectacle. This is probably a different subject, but it seems like they're grasping for movie ideas simply on the basis of, I think it's gonna come back to haunt them.
Right.
I think they're ruining cinema, and I don't think they quite realise it yet. And I think the audience is beginning to realise it.
Right.
You go and see some. I just stopped watching big movies around the time of Transformers.
Yeah.
It's this relentless spectacle.
Right.
There's a huge amount of difference between narrative and spectacle. Video games suffer from the same problem, right? Just this idea that they can somehow quantify how many people will attend a screening simply based on the number of special effects they put into a movie. I don't know, it's a real mistake. It's such a shame because you used to go to a film and you felt like challenged and interested and even changed by it. Not too long ago. I mean, like, I was just thinking the other day, there's so few films about friendship between children, for example. Like we had E.T., The Goonies, Karate Kid. So many Gremlins, so many great movies that really had something to say about human relationships. And now, what is there for kids out there now? I mean, what is a kid told about him or herself in our popular culture now? Simply that he's gun fodder for a giant robot. and probably quite an accurate depiction of his relationship with the capitalist society in which he exists. So maybe we are portraying quite accurately our society in these new movies, but they're desperately grey and vacuous for it.
Do you not have to? I mean, it sounded like you thought that Fast and Furious. I've not seen the latest Fast and Furious film. Sound like you maybe enjoyed them. Maybe if they, I don't know if they.
Yeah, I enjoyed the earlier ones to some degree because I guess there's something fun about watching people racing cars. I mean, only because it seemed real. I mean, as soon as you bring computer graphics into it, it's become so far divorced from anything real. There's no thrill to it. Like I watched. Was it Tokyo Drift the other day on TV, and I just thought it didn't have any of the thrill that the original movie did because it was so rapidly cut and so many of the scenes were clearly computer graphics. Sure. I took pleasure in knowing, that's a stunt driver doing that, and he's just managed to do that. It's kind of like watching a sport. Yeah. I think watching the original kind of chase movies was like watching a sport. Now it's not. Now it's like watching some computer graphics and post-production engineer demonstrate just what he can do.
It's like watching someone else play a computer game.
Yeah, so I don't think the original like chase movies were anything special in terms of narrative or how affecting they were, but at least they were like watching a good sport.
Yeah.
Now there's no story and there's no thrill.
Well, it doesn't sound like there's much love for Gran Turismo unless Bart is going to say he's really looking forward to it.
I'm blown away by Chris's vitriol.
Chris's response.
And it's good. And it's good. I mean, it's good. I don't think I've anything to add apart from perhaps even when you could see how good the stunt drivers were, that's probably still not.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Thanks.
I think is it bless
Yes.
you? I don't know.
Bless
I'm
you
an
to you.
atheist. It's more about if the story is good, you shouldn't be noticing whether there's good stunt drivers or not.
True. Yeah, that's true.
But I can't imagine It's just meant. I mean, you start with a Ford car or something, don't you?
You do, yeah.
Maybe that's what
in the
be
most
like.
recent one, yeah, I think you do.
You'll be a Ford car, and then you'll be a Aston Martin at the end, and maybe it'll be like your soul will be that would be good. Your soul would be transported from different cars, so you'd write off the Ford car, and then you become like say a Leon. Is that a car?
Yeah, that's a car.
And then a Honda Jazz maybe.
Right.
And
work your way up very
your
slowly.
the soul of the car would work its way up.
It's like Herbie.
Yeah.
Transplant.
But like more darker.
What's that film where he can transfer his soul by touching someone just before Fallen? It'll be like
Brilliant.
Fallen,
Never seen
but
it
with
before.
cars.
Denzel Washington.
Denzel Washington can like transfer his soul between people by touching them just before he dies,
It's
and it
like
passes
that.
through.
Right.
It might be like that, but with the cars.
That'd be awesome. I'd
'cause
watch that.
Gran Turismo doesn't have any people in it. All the cars are empty.
Yeah.
And the only other character is the track. So maybe the car becomes progressively better, and the track falls in love with it.
That
It
would
could
be
be-
a comment on modern society that I would love to see.
It could be an incredibly avant-garde art piece that is very
Undoubtedly,
experimental.
it will. It sounds like
I'm gonna
if it's
bet-
got more than 20 million, I think we can pretty much rest assured it's going to be brilliant. The more money you spend on a movie, the better it
it's
is.
gonna be.
Boom, I'm sold.
I think it's going to probably star someone like The Rock. It's probably going to have many action set pieces and romantic love interests.
Not Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Not Philip Seymour Hoffman, I'm afraid.
Shame.
Next,
The
sorry.
Rock, is that...
That's an actor.
Oh, okay.
The wrestler.
He's not even calling himself The Rock
What's he
anymore, which
call
I think is a massive shame. Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson.
Dwayne
Johnson.
Dwayne J. Johnson.
Yeah, whatever.
Dwayne
something
Johnson.
like that.
All right, next news story. The Xbox One controller is going to cost $60 and the headset is going to be $25.
I love these questions.
There's not a question, it's
It's not
just
a
a
question.
statement. Microsoft finally got down to officially telling everyone the official price. Sorry, this is according to Kotaku, of an extra Xbox One controller. That's $60. And the Xbox One headset, which isn't included in the box, is $25. This is important because existing Xbox 360 controllers and compatible headsets won't work with the Xbox One. Microsoft reasons that Kinect, included with every Xbox One, can already handle voice chat for you. Microsoft has also said it plans to make adapters that will allow consumers to connect many brands of wired gaming headsets to the wireless controller for gaming and chat audio.
Can they
Just one sec. You'll get one controller in the Xbox One's box, and if you want an extra recharging pack, that'll cost you another $25.
So can't they... maybe they've already worked this into the price, but I mean, shouldn't they subsidise the headsets because... the NSA are obviously using this to listen in on everyone.
They should, yeah.
So,
But how will that protect you?
Well, no, I mean,
Still
obviously
hear
it
you.
won't. They're going to hear you anyway, but I'm just saying maybe you could be... I mean, maybe they could somehow get a government subsidy because these things are going to be used for surveillance, right?
Surveilling.
Maybe they could reduce the cost of that for
That
us.
would only be in America, though, wouldn't it? Wouldn't be over here in the UK.
Yeah, well, I guess everyone's sort of lending them a hand.
I think they're looking at everybody now, aren't
Are they?
I don't
Who's
know.
they?
Chris is the authority
Well,
on
isn't
this.
it-
No, it was just America that asked if they could access Kinect, basically.
Oh, right. Well, I've been reading about how the new Xbox kind of... It can listen to you and look at you.
Well, it does, because if you say Xbox on, I'm just Googling this as we talk, if you say Xbox on, and the console is off, it will turn itself on.
Right.
So it's always listening, essentially.
Okay.
Important question. Doesn't it come with
It's like having a little Stasi officer in the corner of your room plugged into your TV. The dream. My dream.
And just on wired.co.uk, Microsoft would aggressively challenge NSA use of Kinect to spy on the living room. So
just as they have already. I mean, they've clearly not challenged it so far with spying on Windows users. So why would they, or on the users of Bing? Why would they suddenly grow a conscience now?
Okay, fair enough. I don't know. I'm not actually really concerned about them using. I don't. It's never going to happen.
Well, first they came for the trade unionists, but I wasn't a trade unionist, so I didn't care. And they came for etc. etc. Then they came for me, but then there was no one.
Who's that? Who wrote that?
I don't know, but
You just said it.
It's a good one.
Well, it's basically about the escalation of.
Well, it's like the block on pornography being the start of an invasion.
I mean, this stuff is all benign, right? Until you get a malicious government in power.
That's a classic. It's a classic poem.
You know the poem, yeah?
I've not heard.
There's a poem where he starts like first they came. They come for
Jews,
minority
but
groups.
I wasn't a Jew, so I didn't mind. Then they came for me.
It's just about
I was all that was left, or something.
Yeah. It's just about. It might be a bit heavy. Bit of a heavy
heavy
topic
for my podcast,
but it's relevant because the Xbox has been implicated, at least hypothetically, in being a massively powerful surveillance tool if it was used in that manner.
Right.
And so the poem, which maybe one of your listeners is familiar with and can remind us of the title of, but it basically talks about how initially the majority of people don't object to a surveillance state or to oppressive controls because they don't consider themselves affected by it.
Right.
But then as the influence of those authorities expand to slowly oppress larger groups of people, eventually it would reach the majority. But by that point, it would be impossible to stop it.
Right.
Too late.
How's the poem start?
It starts first. They came for the trade unionists, but it wasn't a.
Is it trade unionists?
Something like that, or the
Socialists?
Yeah, and then they came, and then it goes on. Then they.
Is it first? Is it Martin Niemöller?
Probably. What does it have?
First they came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist.
Yeah.
Then they came for the trade unionists, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me.
Exactly.
Okay.
Terrifying.
And that's Microsoft's new slogan, which I think is very daring, but much more honest than their old one.
But yeah, I mean, back to the game, the actual console itself. Doesn't it come with a controller, and therefore, why is this a problem?
Because you might want an extra controller to play two-player games.
Why? But no one does that anymore, do they?
They do.
Do they?
Sometimes. Well, the next game that we're going to talk about, Minecraft, is a very popular.
Oh yeah,
local.
I'd love to talk about Minecraft.
We'll talk about Minecraft.
What the hell's that all about?
Well, we've got so basically $60 seems like a lot. It's probably going to be about £40.
Okay.
So a lot of money. All right, Minecraft. Minecraft has toppled The Last of Us in the UK charts with Pikmin 3 at number 2. This is a story from Joystick. After surviving 6 weeks, The Last of Us's reign as UK number 1 is over. Naughty Dog's game is blocked from the top spot by resurgent Minecraft Xbox 360 edition. A 74% rise in sales, seeing the XBLA game's disc version tower to the top in its 5th week at retail. So The Last of Us has done incredibly well, especially because it's a PlayStation 3 exclusive to last 6 weeks at number 1. And Minecraft, which has been out for ages on PC, quite a while on Xbox Live, and has recently had a disc release, has just gone from strength to strength. Are you familiar, or are you not familiar with it?
Well, I'm familiar with Minecraft only in that it's you pick up bits and bobs about it. It's all over the internet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you see the word Minecraft and then you click on a link and you think, what's that all about? And YouTube seems to be full of just Minecraft videos, and I cannot for the life of me work out what the appeal is. It's like, I suppose, it's
a Lego 3D Lego world, yeah.
But I used to just follow the instructions with Lego. I mean, maybe
you weren't one of those ones with the creativity.
I'm just part of the system, aren't I? Maybe that's the reason I don't like Minecraft. Or I don't like the look of Minecraft.
And also it's Xbox 360 and you're a PlayStation gamer.
I see, okay. But yeah, I'd love to know, like, what do people, once they've built a world or a castle or whatever, What then?
So, well, I should ask Chris first. Are you familiar with it?
I'm familiar with it, yeah.
Because it's one of the games that's like one of the most influential over the last few years.
Yeah, and it was made independently, right?
It was made independently by a guy called Notch in Sweden. Like one guy who was making. Again, we talked about this, I think, before the show. One guy that was making games during the day and then in the evening was making this. And,
amazing.
I mean, he made something like $90 million last year. I mean, he's ridiculously
incredible.
rich now.
I find it really heartwarming. I mean, I haven't played Minecraft, and I've watched a lot of videos. But what's amazing is that this one guy had this vision, and he's very creative. And instead of him being lost in this massive bureaucracy and some sort of corporate void, he actually sort of went out independently and really achieved what his creation was worth. I mean, he got probably a lot more than perhaps it was worth, but incredible success story, amazing.
Yeah, so he's making a new game called Scrolls now. He's set up Mojang. It's a big Swedish developer, but yeah, essentially he is one of those indie developers like Jonathan Blow and Phil Fish that's done very well. But unlike those guys, he's maybe a little bit more. Not self-effacing, but a little bit more modest with things, or like less infuriated.
Maybe private. Is he just more private?
Private is probably the word. Yeah. But to answer your question, Bart, basically there's a creation mode where you can just you mine materials and then forge like pickaxes and spades or whatever it is that you use to craft a house or any other structure that you want. I mean, people create cathedrals or
I've
just
seen
like
some of these
train tracks or whatever it is. And you can just do that, or there's a game element where you are, you're hunted at night by the creepers, and so you kind of have to make sure that you get into your house, and there's a challenge element to it.
Yeah, and it's people talking to each other, and they're like, "Someone's after us," and they get in the house or something.
Yeah, I think honestly, it's taken like.
I was wondering how it's a game. That's all.
That's the basic game element, but I think the most interesting element of it, and the thing that has kind of captured a lot of kids' imagination, is this ability to create worlds in there, and it's like Little Big Planet, or you just the creating element of it.
I mean, I really admire people who create things, and I feel like I have failed in that I don't like maybe.
Well, should you mention what you do professionally?
I suppose,
that's a good point. Yeah.
I'm a cabinet maker, so I do create.
You create physical things.
Physical things. I guess I used to make Command and Conquer maps,
right?
But then there was kind of a purpose that, like, you play play a multiplayer game of Command and Conquer on it.
Well, with this, if you create something that's you can create stuff on your own with your family and show it to your friends. You can also create stuff and invite other people to come in and play. And so it's like, look at what I've done. Look at how much time I've spent making this amazing recreation of. Like the London Eye, or whatever it is, Yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm more interested now. We've talked about.
You should definitely give it a try. I mean, it's available on iPhone. That's not the version to play.
I've seen it available. I don't know. I don't know if I'd even know what to build.
You join friends and they will, you'll come up with something. It's like that social experience where you're like, why don't we just make this? And you'll give it a go and probably fail, and then you'll just move on to the next thing.
Maybe I'll have a go.
It's very in depth. There's lots of guides online about like how to forge various different materials. You need to combine other things within the world to make. I'm not explaining this very well, but you could. There's a lot of possibilities within that world, but it looks very. It looks very regressive, old school, just in its design. Like it's very kind of. There's no complication to it. You were saying there's no like that element of spectacle. It's stripped down to its bare basics. I mean, it's blocks basically, men made of blocks, and it's just Lego. So that's the element of it that sort of it flies in the face of all other video games at the moment that are kind of popular in the charts, which are. Well, not all of them, but the ones that have been doing well, like The Last of Us, which is incredibly realistic. I mean, it's still stylized, but very, very realistic. So, Minecraft has done phenomenally well and doesn't show any signs of slowing down. I mean, I can't see them ever really making a sequel to it, but it's like this game will just keep going.
It'll be like making a sequel to Lego.
Yeah, exactly, which would be a crazy idea. Nintendo's also having a good week. Pikmin 3 went in at number 2. I know you're a Nintendo fan, Bart. Any interest in Pikmin? I used to be.
Yes. No, I have no idea what Pikmin is, I'm afraid. I'm a fan of Nintendo in as much as Zelda is incredible, apart from Majora's Mask. I know that's contentious.
Yeah, that is contentious.
I'm saying it.
What about Animal Crossing?
Yeah, look, you played that one.
I need to lend it to you, don't I? Yeah.
I'd love to play. I want to play that. I want to play Fire Emblem, but I haven't. It's just like I can't really justify the expense of buying these things. Well, I used to be. Maybe I've just lost the youthful spirit I once had. For
You've still got
computer
your
games.
joie de vivre, but you're not.
I feel
Okay.
but maybe I'm applying it in different areas.
Well, no,
of
a
my life.
Nintendo 3DS would cost you £130, £140 plus
Yeah.
£30 per game. So that's a £200 investment. It's a serious investment.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Most people
Yeah.
look at that.
Um,
I will lend you mine and be
thank
interested
you.
to
I'd-
find
I'd-
out how you.
I'd
find
love, especially to play Fire Emblem. That looks like. I mean, I loved Advance Wars. I
it.
have
Yeah,
DS,
it's a similar vein.
so yeah, that's really exciting. Genuinely exciting game to play. I think.
Cool. Well, you have to play Minecraft, and I would suggest you play Minecraft as well. Actually.
Okay.
Okay. All right. I know you're in
I'll give
crunch
it
at
a
the
shot.
moment, but when you're finished. All right. You can find out more details about those news stories. I will put a link to the show notes in the podcast. Okay, time to talk to my guests about what they've been doing at the moment, what's on their radar, what else might be of interest. Bart, let's start with you. What are you playing? What are you doing in general at the moment? I'm coughing right now.
Indeed. I would say I just downloaded a new game today. It is for my iPad and it is called Machinarium.
Machinarium, yeah, the adventure game.
It's brilliant.
Yeah.
I played. It's called Savarost, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a Czech development team.
Yeah.
And so it's just like a hand drawn art and. You have to interact. It's like a point and click thing, which and you play a little robot on a planet, and it's just really beautiful. You don't know what to click on because it all looks like part of the scenery.
Or tap on,
there's
you're playing it
or
on
tap
an
on, yeah.
iPhone.
And there's no
Fingerbang on.
It's a thing, yeah, but it's not.
It's not-
a thing.
you're not banging.
You're not banging. It's you're using your brain. It's just,
Okay.
It's like a really clever little
brain
point
banging.
and click,
Okay.
point and tap puzzle game. I just finished playing Correct, like I said earlier.
Yeah.
That's the Michael Bruff game. That took me. I've had that on my iPhone for about six months, and I finally got around to finishing it because it's really compelling. And what else is there? I should have really prepared for this, shouldn't I?
No, you're okay. That's a good breadth of games. What about you, Chris? Have you been playing anything recently?
Yes, I've been playing I've dipped my toe in a few titles. I mean, I played a few minutes of Kentucky Route Zero.
Yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
Amazing.
On
I mean,
PC or
no, on Mac. Yeah.
I need to play that. What is that? I've heard
It's
about
an
that a
adventure
lot.
game. It's sort of like Monkey Island, but the graphics are kind of quite fun and vector based. It's quite beautiful. I literally played the first kind of 2 minutes of that.
Right.
But I got a sense of the game's quality and the graphics are really beautiful and it seemed like something new.
Are you a sucker for that sort of vector-based?
Yeah, I do
presentation?
I like kind of impressionistic art styles that deviate from let's see how photorealistic we can make this.
Right.
That doesn't interest me. I'm more interested. I think gaming is maturing as a result of photorealism having almost been achieved. I think people are realizing this isn't the holy grail. Like as with painting, I think painting, traditional painting evolved to the point where people achieved photorealism, at which point achieving photorealism wasn't that exciting. It was much more interesting what you could do with your imagination if you chose a slightly different art style. So I really like stuff like Kentucky Route Zero was great. The last game I sort of played in any depth was Limbo. It's obviously a well-trodden sort of game. And
Did you play it? What format?
again on the Mac.
Mac.
Played it on the Mac.
And you bought it for me. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I
Because
did.
your colleague Andrew was this afternoon saying it wasn't very good on iPhone. Didn't really suit the. Again.
Was he? He was really into it the first few
Okay.
days.
He said specifically the iPhone version is.
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't really played it on the iPhone. So I really enjoyed that. I also played a really good game. Actually, I have a good site recommendation for your listeners, and that's this game, this site called indiegames.com.
Right.
And they cover a lot of very strange, esoteric video games, like the sort of ones that might only be one or two scenes, and they're quite experimental by loads of little developers all around the world,
Yeah,
as well as the mainstream titles. But they're really like comprehensive in terms of like the titles they cover. And I played a really good game that was linked on that the other day, where you played a man commuting to work, and the game actually had no kind of objective other than for you to get to work, but you encountered more and more frustrations day after day. So the traffic jams would get worse, your office would get more and more cluttered, your boss would get more and more angry, the journey home would become more and more stressful.
Right.
And the game itself was more of an experience than a sort of goal-oriented game. It was completely non-traditional, and those are the games I really love, the games where they're either funny or weird or have something to say about culture. Because I think
this is a real game.
Yes, it's a real game.
Making
No, a real game, and they have a lot of games like this on there. There's a whole bunch of games that.
What's that game called where it's called like 1,000 flights of.
Yeah, 1,000 flights
Loving.
of love. Yeah.
But it's the game previous to that where you just like do 2 missions. You're a spy, and you're just like a big cube-headed spy. And you do like sort of 2 or 3 missions, and there's no real end, and you kind of die at the end. But it's just like a really completely different graphical style I've ever seen before.
You're quite, 30 Flights of Loving. Yeah.
And what's the previous one to that? Because 30 Flights of Loving I found I didn't get into as much.
I'm just trying to find out. Cause, I haven't played 30 Flights of Loving, I'd say. But
that was on Steam. Someone told me to go on Steam, and I did.
You've caught me out. Is it Gravity Bone?
It's Gravity Bone.
Yeah,
it's definitely Gravity Bone.
Cool.
Yeah, which is a great name for a game.
It's a great name. Yeah, from Blendo Games. Yeah, right. I've not played either of those.
Yeah,
You're quite into your indie games.
I want to be. It's finding the time really. I think more than anything. But yeah, I mainly play on the iPad and iPhone, iOS games. But if I finished a game, I really try and find a good new game to spend my money on, or even an old game to spend my money on. That's how Machinarium came up.
Right. Machinarium is very good at playing.
Because I think it's really important to like play beautiful games, and I just want beautiful games.
Yeah. Is that the key? The beautiful visually and emotionally.
It's about emotion. It's about having emotions that make you feel nice and happy. I think happiness is really important in life.
I just also want to mention there's a game I'm really looking forward to, which is rare for me.
Yeah.
It's a game called Riot. Have you heard of it? Riot. Look it up. It's the video is amazing. It's got a graphical style that's very similar to Sword and Sorcery.
Yeah, okay.
Except it's a game about basically about the kind of youth and anti-capitalist uprising that's across Europe.
It's got the Banksy logo, is that right?
Yeah.
It looks like it's got Banksy, the protester
fantastic.
throwing flowers.
Yeah.
Have you played that?
No, but I've seen the video and the graphics are incredible. Yeah. Really incredible.
I think I saw the video.
It's not come out yet.
Riotgame.org if you want to have a look into that one.
Yeah, definitely take a look.
I've got a couple of tips for you guys that might be of interest. What stuff that I played at the Develop Conference earlier in the month. One is That Dragon Cancer, which is about a dad's experience with the child going through terminal illness. It sounds horrible, but like very sort of experimental. It's like told from a first-person perspective. Mm-hmm. You kind of zoom out and see the dad, and he's talking very frankly about his experiences. It's an experience-based game rather than a challenge-based game. But I was really interesting. Ibn Ob is a cool game. It's going to PlayStation 3, I think, next week, which is a cool indie platforming game where you basically the controls. You go. How do I describe this? You go upside down as Ibn Ob, and you've got to work together. It's a co-op experience, but when you're upside down in this world, the controls are reversed, so you have to.
So you need someone else to play it with.
You do need some. I don't know actually. When I was playing through it, there was someone else there playing with me, and it's called Ibn Ob, so I presume it's
Cameron and Clegg.
Yeah, exactly. Could be skinned and be.
I don't really know anyone. None of my friends really play video games. I think
that's the problem.
Well, that's a problem for that sort of game, certainly.
And perhaps for this podcast.
What do you guys think? Because I've been playing through this with this. It's gone dark in here in this room, but the Razer Blade computer. It's the lightest gaming laptop in the world.
I think congratulations to them.
Is this the sort of thing that interests you guys at all, or I think I know the answer to this?
Not in the slightest.
Not in the slightest.
I prefer consoles just because I have a projector, so I kind of like to see it really big.
Yeah,
I like to see a really big game. I think if I I don't know, it looks nice. I do like the look of it. Considering it's a PC laptop, it's quite slick.
It is a PC laptop. It's basically.
Oh, that's this. Sorry, that's this one we're looking at.
Yeah, what do you think we were talking about?
I don't know.
He was happy to talk about it.
I thought asked me to speculate on something I hadn't seen.
Oh no, this is this laptop.
Yeah, with the green keys. Really, I mean, it looks like the Matrix.
It does though.
I like it.
Do you?
I like the matrixness of it. It's different, and I think I would be, if I was playing a game on it, I'd be very happy. I think it's always weird playing a game using a QWERTY keyboard.
Do you? Okay.
I think that's a very strange thing, but because it's for typing, isn't it? I mean, designed for typing, and but I mean it works. I've done it before. It's fine. I played a lot of Warcraft once.
You did, yeah. You used to be into Walker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not so much anymore.
No,
one of
no.
the other news stories that we're going to cover was the fact they dropped another 300,000 subscribers recently. So they're kind of, yeah, it's still a very popular game, but they're losing people.
Yeah.
Redundancies.
I tried going back to it, but I didn't realise. I realised I didn't understand why I'd played in the first place. Redundancy.
I mean, they'd employed too many people there already.
300,000 as well,
I think that's too many staff members for one video game.
No, Chris, no, you're getting it wrong. Sorry, go back.
No, I was sure I was going to say something else about the this computer that you're using, but I can't do.
Oh yeah, it's basically it's like one of the old sort of 2 generations ago MacBooks, the sort of black MacBook. I used to have one. It reminds me very much of it. In fact, so much so the keys feel exactly the same.
Yeah.
But if you want a gaming laptop, it's one of those things that I think like people like myself really want, like in their life, because you're like, I can play Tomb Raider or Battlefield or whatever it is whenever I'm.
I want to know what.
I never end up doing it.
I basically want to know what games I can play using it. I don't know what games I can play using that. And Chris, you said you like playing games on a projector. I don't know what games are good on a console at the moment to play on a projector. That's the only reason I'm playing these iOS games, because it's so easy.
Don't know.
It's so easy to find really good games either by going online or just Google searching it, or going in the App Store and just finding like what's got good reviews and what's got 5-star reviews and having a look at that. And if it's not a tower defense game, which always have 5 stars, but I'm not interested in them.
As a genre, you're not interested.
I don't know. I don't really get them, but I really want to know what I can play on my big TV and on my PlayStation. I don't know really how to, if there is anything that's will match the experience I'm getting on my iPhone or iPad.
Right. I'm struggling to think of any recommendations to give you right now. It's a quiet time at the moment. But
you gave me Journey, and that was...
Journey was my last one, so it's hard to top that, isn't it, really?
I know, we keep saying Journey.
Journey. Go by Journey.
Play Journey.
Journey. I have to put half an hour of Go by Journey, don't I?
Or just loop what Bart just said.
Continuous loop. Okay, well, let's move on. We're going to look at some of the games that are out this week, what we think of them. These guys, I don't think, will have played any of them, but let me just start.
That's not going to get in the way.
It's not going to get in the way. No scores this week, though. It's a quiet week, and these games are out at the end of the week and not been reviewed yet. So, Call of Duty Black Ops 2 Vengeance is hitting consoles. Castle Storm's hitting PC. Cloudberry Kingdom is on Xbox 360. Pixel Junk Monsters Ultimate HD is coming to PlayStation Vita. And Sir, You Are Being Hunted on PC, which is a fantastic name.
The last one sounds great.
So You're Being Hunted does look actually very good. So,
what is it?
It's an adventure game. I mean, just
is it based in a boarding school?
Well, you have to alert your housemaster to the fact he's being hunted by...
That must be it, surely.
A puma.
Why not?
With a vendetta.
With an axe.
It's an advent. It's on Big Robot. It's from Big Robot. I think it's something that I was maybe thinking of something else, but it's taps into the rich theme of tweed-loving British science fiction to conjure a sinister reality where artificial gentlemen hunt humans.
Artificial gentleman.
What's an artificial gentleman?
I think an artificial gentleman is probably a robot, basically.
I'm totally behind this game.
Sir, You're Being Hunted.
Yeah, it looks the art style.
What can I play this?
The art style looks fantastic. I think it's PC.
Oh yeah, the art looks good.
Yeah, so that's out this week. Guys,
on what? Sorry,
I think on PC.
On PC. Is it on Mac? I mean, that's really. I haven't got a PC.
It's on my running order as PC, but check it out. I'm sorry.
No, that's not your fault.
Wonderfully underprepared for this.
Is the Mac gaming industry getting bigger?
It's getting big. I mean, there are more bigger releases that are. I mean, Limbo you played on there. Yeah. Deus Ex is available on the App Store, but it's still a long way off the PC.
I want to play Antichamber. I was waiting for that for a year, and then the man said it's on the PC, and I.
Who's the man?
I don't know. I can't remember what his name is, developer, but I wrote to him and he said, it would, We'll see. I mean, it's been really, really popular.
It has. It's done well. I don't know if it's been like a massive, massive success. It's done well.
It was. Yeah, I mean, on Steam, it was big. I think.
Have you guys seen Hotline Miami at all?
Yeah, everyone's saying how good this is, and I looked at a bit of gameplay of it, and it's like.
I'll boot it up so you guys can have a look when we're done with the podcast. The final recommendation from Develop as well, actually, before I forget, is Tengami. I will show you Tengami on iPad. It's very, very impressive. It's a beautiful Japanese storybook presentation.
Okay,
I'll show you a clip. It's available online. Guys, thanks so much for your time. I think that's about it for this episode. where can we find out more about your works? Stalk you online, whatever it is. You've said you're not Twitter, so.
Well, I'm Twitter.
You're Twitter. You are Twitter.
Fingerbang, the Fingerbang podcast has a Twitter account which Bart mans.
It's at Fingerbang Pod.
At Fingerbang Pod.
Yes, and that's it's got a link on the bio thing, so you can just link straight to the episode. We've only got the pilot up at the moment, but we're hoping to have the next episode out at some point this week, right, Chris?
Yes.
Good stuff. And Chris, CMA Megacorp does have a blog.
Yes, story.cmamegacorp.com.
Megacorp, that's CORP at the end.
Yeah, the easiest thing to do is probably just to go to cmamegacorp.com, and that'll take you to our Facebook page.
Go from there.
You can friend us.
And find out more about your game, hopefully soon at some point.
Yes, very soon.
Guys, thanks very much for joining me. If you have any feedback about this episode of the show, please send it to podcast@guycocker.com. Next week, I'll be joined by as yet unconfirmed guests, because I haven't actually got in touch with anyone.
Natalie Portman.
Amazing.
Next week, I'll be joined by unconfirmed guest Natalie Portman.
And Mila Kunis.
And unconfirmed guest Robert De Niro. See you then.
Thanks for having us, Guy.
No, thank you very much, guys. Keep an eye on twitter.com/GuyCocker for more updates. Just subscribe in iTunes if you want them delivered as they're available. And if you're feeling particularly generous, leave me a review or rating. We'll see you next week.
Bang you later.